Hello, hello. How are we doing today? Welcome into Player Profiler today. Today is Monday, May 6th, 2024. My name is Tyler Knable, your host, not Bradley Stalder. Need to get my own intro still. I think it's like week 4. I need to get I'm going to contact Bradley Stalder about that. I want to keep using his, but welcome in. And today we're going to be talking about the NFL season-long Underdog Pick'em. So Underdog just released their season-long projections. So, over receiving yards for the season for guys like, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, stuff like that. So we're going to dive into all of that. We're also, I got 8 bets for you. I feel really strongly about some of them. I literally wrote a ton of swear words in here. I don't know if I'll say them on stream, but I literally wrote, because as I was writing it, I just couldn't believe how insane some of this stuff was. So we're going to dive into all of that coming up right after this. All right. And without further ado, let's just dive into the first one. And so this one, I feel like I'm just going to start off the gate here pretty strong. Like, I feel really strongly about this first one, and it is JJ McCarthy under 20.5 passing touchdowns. So like I said, you can go back. You can go on Underdog right now. All these projections are there. They have a ton of them, so go check that out. Underdog's a great sponsor of Player Profiler, so go check those out. All these bets are courtesy of Underdog. And JJ McCarthy under 20.5 touchdowns is by far, I think it's my favorite bet I have on this list. 20.5 passing touchdowns. Let's say he even is the starter week 1, which I don't think he is, which is a big reason why I like this bet. Unders overall too are just genuinely more safe because they like injuries. The NFL is the one league where you can definitely bet on injuries, and you're hitting the under over season projection on a lot of these guys. So unless I really like the over, then I tend to lean under. If you're in between something, I would tend to lean under because the injury just gives you another out in the bet that you're making. And so JJ McCarthy, like I said, he could get hurt. We don't hope that any player gets hurt, but it's a possibility. And I just don't think even if he starts all 17 weeks, which I don't think he's going to, 20.5 is like not a given. Like, he's a rookie quarterback. He didn't throw a ton at Michigan. Like, Kirk Cousins was on pace for 600 passing attempts last year. JJ McCarthy only threw 332 in his highest total passing attempt season, which was last year in 2023. That's 22 passing attempts per game. 22 passing attempts per game for JJ McCarthy and Michigan in 2023. Like, I just don't see how you can go from 22 to like 40. He's never been asked to carry that kind of load in an offense. I don't think they just throw him into the fire like, all right, take the keys. It's like they're gonna say they signed Sam Darnold for a reason. He got $10 million in 1 year. Like, he's gonna start the year. I'm very, very confident in that. I think they like JJ McCarthy, that I don't think there's a rush to play him right away. I truly don't. So there's the injury concern. There's the fact that JJ McCarthy is probably not going to play. I would say like the first 5 weeks, like, what if the Vikings just get off to a good start? They start maybe 3-2 or 4-1. It's going to be hard to sit Sam Darnold while he's playing that well. Like, he wants to play well too. Like, this is kind of his chance to be in a really good offense, and he's going to be the guy, I think, going into the season. So I really like JJ McCarthy under 20.5 passing touchdowns. So that's by far my favorite bet of the slate. And I'll get to another reason why. Let's just do it right now because these two tie into each other very perfectly. My next bet that for the season-long Underdog picks that I like, Caleb Williams over 23.5 passing touchdowns. Now, Caleb Williams is going to be the starter from week 1. That's pretty much a shoe-in. That's a certainty at this point. And this is where I swore it when I was in my little show sheet that I have here. What I wrote down is, how in the absolute F is Caleb Williams only projected 3 more passing touchdowns than JJ McCarthy? Make that make sense to me. Make that make sense to me. I don't understand it. Caleb Williams has better weapons than Minnesota has, at least for this year. Like, Hawkinson's going to start the year probably on the pup at least. He's probably going to miss a good portion of the season. Jordan Addison, he's there. Yes, you had Justin Jefferson. Aaron Jones, yes. But you look at Chicago, DeAndre Swift, pass-catching running back. Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, some investments in the old line. Like everything is set up there for Caleb Williams to have a good year. It's the best situation a number one quarterback's ever been in, a number one overall pick has ever gone to. And Caleb Williams is a different prospect than we've seen in quite some time since Andrew Luck. Obviously, you guys know about that. But over 23.5 passing touchdowns, like I said, sometimes the over is a little scary because there's the injury concern there. And the bet doesn't void if somebody gets hurt. So it's a little scary with Caleb Williams there. But, I know a lot of quarterbacks got hurt last year. But generally speaking, I feel like quarterbacks is one of the more healthier positions because there's rules in place to protect QBs and all that jazz. So I love the Caleb Williams over 23.5 passing touchdowns. He just feels like a really low number to me. If we're doing the math on that, it's 24 touchdowns, right? Like you divide that by 17, like he needs to average like what, 1.5 a game about? Not even, 1.5. Yeah, about 1.5 a game. That's pretty. I think Caleb Williams can do that. I truly think Caleb Williams can do that, man. Like it's just, I don't understand. So Caleb Williams over 23.5 passing TDs. JJ McCarthy under 20.5 passing touchdowns. And our next one's another rookie. Not all these are rookies, but a good amount of them just because I think I like some of the leans on here. But Malik Neighbors over 875.5 receiving yards for the season. He is the only guy there. Literally the only guy there, especially if Darren Waller retires. He is the only guy there. Wan'Dale Robinson, yes, is a name. Jalen Hyatt, Slayton. Like it's sick there. It's absolutely sick. And you got to factor in the Brian Daboll factor. We saw what Brian Daboll was able to do when he was the OC, when he was the one calling plays. He was the OC during that Josh Allen, breakout season. And Stephon Diggs had the best season of his career because he was, again, kind of the only guy in Buffalo, and they targeted him just a ton. And I see something very similar to that happening in New York. I really don't care who the QB is. If Malik Neighbors plays 15 plus games, I'd be shocked if he doesn't hit this number. I'd be shocked if he didn't hit 1,000 receiving yards. Like I feel like 1,000 receiving yards isn't that crazy hard to do, especially in today's league. Like 875, like it's just too low of a number. And like you just got to pray that if he stays healthy, I don't see how he doesn't get there. He plays 15 plus games. I don't see how he doesn't get there. He's a hyper competitive guy. He's going to want the ball. He's going to command a ton of targets. He's by far the best just overall weapon they have on this team is Malik Neighbors. Daboll's going to move him around the field. He's going to get him open, I think. And he's explosive too. Like it's the yards that I just really like Malik Neighbors. And I like the talent coming out of LSU. He was my wide receiver 1 overall in the class. Not a great landing spot for Dynasty, but that's neither here nor there. This prop bet feels really a lot too low. Plus, he has a bet with Jaden Daniels, who's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. If he wants to make good on that bet, he better have more than 875 receiving yards, especially in this loaded offensive class where we saw just a record high number of offensive players go in the first round. So Malik Neighbors over 875.5 receiving yards. This brings us to another LSU rookie wideout. Now, I think this is my second favorite bet on this slate. Brian Thomas Jr. under 800.5 receiving yards. I'm going to use the word again. How in the absolute F is Brian Thomas projected just 75 yards less than Malik Neighbors? Malik Neighbors is the only one in New York. Brian Thomas, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Gabe Davis, Travis Etienne, and then Brian Thomas. There are so many guys who are to command work in this offense. Christian Kirk, I just listed them all, right? Like Christian Kirk's probably the number one option for Trevor Lawrence. Evan Ingram's probably second on that list. Etienne is going to steal some targets out of the backfield, steal some work overall. Gabe Davis is Brian Thomas Jr. going to beat out Gabe Davis in year 1? Is he going to start week 1 as the wide receiver 3 on this team? I'm not 100% sure that that's going to happen. You like to think so because they draft him in the first round. He's an uber athletic type of prospect, but I just don't see how Brian Thomas Jr. gets to 800 in this crowded room. I think Christian Kirk was hurt last year. Let me double check. I should have done the research beforehand, but Christian Kirk last year had 787 receiving yards in 12 games. 787. He didn't even hit this. Again, he only played 12 games, but still, you would have liked to think that Christian Kirk at least hit that number. What did Calvin Ridley have while I'm looking at? Calvin Ridley had 910. He played 16 games. Again, Calvin Ridley, who just got all that money, got 910. So he got 100 yards more, and he was probably the number one in that offense. Brian Thomas isn't even going to be the number 3 in this offense because I don't think he beats out in terms of overall workload. He's not beating out Kirk. He's not beating out Ingram, and I don't think he's beating out ETN in terms of just I think ETN's going to have a lot of carries, which is going to take. This isn't going to be more balanced than it's going to be a pass heavy offense in my opinion. So Brian Thomas Jr. I don't see how he gets to 800.5. Yes, he could go crazy. He is more of a deep threat guy. Maybe he gets a 200 yard game, and then that's going to be looking really, really good for him. But I just don't see him commanding a ton of targets. It's just I don't see it. I don't see it with Brian Thomas Jr. I think he's a little bit raw. It could be a learning curve for him, early in the season, which is going to help this bet. So under 800.5 receiving yards for Brian Thomas Jr. Now, before we get to that was our first 4 picks. Before we get to our last 4 picks, I said this was an Underdog pick'em. So let's hear a word about Underdog for the 2024 fantasy season.
This episode is made possible by Underdog Fantasy, and Underdog Fantasy is the leader in best ball. When you go to join an Underdog Fantasy best ball draft, it fills very quickly, especially now. It's Best Ball Mania season, baby. Best Ball Mania 5. I can't believe they're at Best Ball Mania 5 already. $15 million in prizes. They're giving out $15 million with $1.5 million to first. Playing in best ball leagues makes you better. It helps train you on player value and strategy. And Underdog offers a lot more than just best ball contests. They offer pick'ems. My new favorite, the golf pick'ems. But they have the NBA pick'ems, baseball pick'ems going on throughout the offseason. Hit the pick'ems, back to best ball, hit the pick'ems. So use promo code Underworld. Promo code Underworld gets you a 50% deposit bonus up to $250. So they've increased the maximum deposit bonus. It was $100. Now it's up to $125. When you get the Underdog app, use promo code Underworld and go draft your ass off.
Use promo code Underworld. We're drafting every day over on my channel at PPR Tyler. We're going to be drafting actually right after this at 6:30. So come hang out with us there again at PPR Tyler on Twitter, at PPR Tyler on YouTube. Both places it gets streamed, and an absolute blast. Absolute blast. And Anthony said it right here. Like and sub, go play BBM5. Underdog, unbelievable platform, unbelievable contest they have over there. Go check out Underdog Fantasy if you have not done so already. Unbelievable vibes over there at Underdog. Okay, let's get back to our Underdog season-long pick'em best bets. Again, if you're just joining us, the first 4 were J.J. McCarthy under 20.5 passing touchdowns. Malik Neighbors over 875.5 receiving yards. Brian Thomas Jr. under 800.5 receiving yards. And Caleb Williams over 23.5 passing touchdowns. That brings us to our next prop bet. And this is a running back prop bet. And I again, on the sheet, I wrote in all caps, is this a joke? Question mark, exclamation point, question mark. Derrick Henry over 10.5 rushing touchdowns. And it's hard to project, you can't, we don't like in the fantasy community a big no. You can't just project what somebody did last season to this season. But just for reference, Gus effing Edwards had 13 rushing touchdowns last year. Gus Edwards, 13 rushing touchdowns. You're going to tell me Derrick Henry's not going to get at least 11? Derrick Henry's going to get less than Gus Edwards. There's just no possible way. Look at there's no big goal line threats. They're going to steal touchdowns away from Derrick Henry. Rasheen Ali, not a goal line threat. Keaton Mitchell, not a goal line threat. Those other guys, maybe that are Justice Hill, not a goal line threat. Like Derrick Henry's going to be the guy on the goal line. And it was that way with Gus Edwards last year. It's going to be that way this year with Derrick Henry. And Lamar Jackson, like some people, yes, he's a running quarterback, but he's not really like a goal line rushing quarterback. You don't see Lamar Jackson doing the tush push. That's not his game. He's not one of those big quarterbacks, like Jalen Hurts, like Josh Allen, like maybe some of the other guys that try and replicate the tush push. But Lamar Jackson, if he's getting a rushing touchdown, it's more of a longer scrambling run, or it's like a read option. It's not ever really QB sneak or like designed QB power. It's really not a lot of that on the goal line. It's going to be the Derrick Henry show, and especially like read option, like, oh, I don't like it, like I'll just hand it out to Derrick Henry. And like I think people have talked about this with Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, and having that rushing quarterback opens up the rushing lanes a little bit for you in the NFL, because The DNs are going to stay home. They're going to be out a little wider because they're so scared of Lamar pulling it and getting around them, beating them to the edge. So it's going to leave a lot more space in the middle, which is exactly where Derrick Henry excels in his kind of running style. Again, 10.5 rushing touchdowns. It just feels criminal. Feels criminal. Way too low of a line. I'm going to be hammering the over on that all the time. Every single time. Take it home. Take it to the bank. The only thing that's scary, yes, Derrick Henry's like 30 years old. Not great. Could get hurt, but I mean, that's I'm willing to play the risk on that. 10.5 rushing touchdowns is just ridiculous. He plays 15 games. He's going to crush this. He's going to absolutely crush it, especially in this offense. Like, Derrick Henry's the man. Derrick Henry is the man. That brings us to our next prop bet. Another one of my favorite ones. Another going back to the Minnesota Vikings. Justin Jefferson over 1,375.5 rushing yards. 1,375.5, or sorry, receiving yards, excuse me. Now, Justin Jefferson, I don't know if he's going to get 1,000 rushing yards. 1,375.5 receiving yards for Justin Jefferson. Again, I wrote down this MF played in 9 games last year and at 1,000 yards. He played in 9 games and had 1,000 yards. And this is the Kirk Cousins discount, right? We've seen him perform way over this. He was on pace for well over this last year. And I will take the no Kirk Cousins discount. And I know I talked about the McCarthy thing, but I think Darnold plays a lot more than people may recognize. So, I mean, I think they can trust Darnold to throw the ball right out of the gate than they will with McCarthy. So this isn't really like, it's just because I don't like the McCarthy prop doesn't mean I don't think Justin Jefferson's still going to get a ton of receiving yards. So like I said, I promise you, like, if he plays 12 games this year, he's going to smash this projection. And we look at the games of what Justin Jefferson did without Kirk Cousins. In the 4 games he played without Kirk, he averaged 10 plus targets in every single game. He averaged 7.5 receptions per game, and he averaged 119 yards per game. You do the math, he's well hitting 1,375.5. If he just plays 14, 15, if he plays all 17, this is a smash spot for Justin Jefferson. I'll buy the dip on probably what is the best wide receiver in the NFL. There's also a very outside chance if he doesn't get the contract extension going into the season, which he probably is going to. But if he doesn't, he's in a contract year. He's going to want to ball out, So I think it's worth mentioning that factor of it at least. Get this discount while you still can. I mean, I could see this going up the closer we get to the season. 1,375.5 just feels ridiculous. It's way too low. I love this line. Justin Jefferson over 1,375.5 receiving yards. Next one, go into defense. Little defense for you guys. And this is more of a vibes pick, so this isn't like one of those offensive, like really well researched. I just off vibes. I didn't really think this felt like a low number to me when I first saw it. It's Byron Murphy over 4.75 sacks. So you need him pretty much just to get 5 sacks for the season. Like, this guy was the first defensive player taken off the board in the NFL draft. And he's legit talent for a reason. And he's a D tackle. And I think that may deter some people from hitting his over because, D tackles really aren't known for sacks. But he's not a run-stopping D tackle. This isn't Vita Vea or some of those bigger run-stuffing guys. He is a pass rusher. Go look at the Texas game versus Washington. Byron Murphy, they would double team him, and he was causing havoc for Washington's O-line. He was all over the place. He's just a stud. 5 sacks feels a lot, really, like a lot lower than what it should be. And you also, he's obviously on the Seattle Seahawks. You pencil that with the fact that Mike McDonald is his head coach. He was the DC for the Ravens last year. Think of what Justin Mbadabukwe, I don't know how to exactly say his name, and Justin Mbadabukwe, I think that's how you say it. Look what he did last year, like from the D tackle spot. I think he's going to be well used on the field. Mike McDonald's going to know how to use him. A lot of third down, I think, pass rushing snaps, going to up his overall sack number. So I really like Byron Murphy over 4.75 sacks. Now, the last one, another kind of vibes one, but something I really love just because I believe in Carolina this season. I'm a Falcons fan. I shouldn't be believing in Carolina, but I like what I'm reading kind of just from the situation there overall. Bryce Young over 18.5 passing touchdowns. 18.5. That is less than J.J. McCarthy. And Bryce Young, I think if Bryce Young and J.J. McCarthy were in the same class, Bryce Young would definitely go over JJ McCarthy. And he's projected 3 less passing touchdowns than 2 less passing touchdowns than JJ McCarthy. Like Bryce Young, what he had to go through last year, I think rivals one of the worst situations a rookie quarterback has ever had to step into. Terrible head coach, terrible weapons, terrible O-line, and it was just awful all the way around. Now you look into this season, they get a new head coach who's also going to be the play caller. Dave Canales, coming from Tampa Bay, did wonders for Geno Smith in Seattle, got him that big contract extension. Did wonders for Baker Mayfield when everybody thought he was washed. We thought Kyle Trask was going to start games last year. And then Dave Canales comes in, saves Baker Mayfield's career, gets him a boatload of money. Now he goes to Carolina and he's going to link up with Bryce Young, probably the most talented quarterback Dave Canales has ever had the pleasure of working with, just based off his draft capital prowess. He was the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Whether that's a mistake or not, is still left to be, still remain. We'll see. Like again, CJ Stroud probably gonna be better than Bryce Young, but Bryce Young, I still think he can be a really quality passing quarterback in this league. 18.5 passing touchdowns is nothing. That's not a lot of passing touchdowns. I think Carolina bounces back in a big way this year with Canales calling the plays. He's the QB whisperer. He's fixed 2 quarterbacks with a lot bigger problems than Bryce Young. So I think Bryce Young over 18.5 passing touchdowns is the way. It's the way, and it's probably one of my favorite bets. I really like that bet. So let's just recap them all, and then we'll get out of here. First one, JJ McCarthy under 20.5 passing touchdowns. Malik Neighbors over 875.5 receiving yards. Brian Thomas Jr. under 800.5 receiving yards. Caleb Williams over 23.5 passing touchdowns. Derrick Henry over 10.5 rushing touchdowns. Justin Jefferson over 1375.5 receiving yards. Byron Murphy over 4.75 sacks. I saw Jason say, it's almost drafting time, and I said stacks. Byron Murphy over 4.75 sacks, and Bryce Young over 18.5 passing touchdowns. And the great thing about this is I gave you 8. You can only do 6 on Underdog. So maybe you don't like 2 of my picks. Just take just cross off 2 and go the other 6, or make your own picks, right? Go on Underdog. They have some multipliers on there too, which makes it a lot more fun. You can kind of get more juice on some of those picks, but maybe do 2, do 3, do 4. I did 6. That's what I did. Like again, I bet on this stuff. I'm not just going to give you advice and then not bet on it. So that's what I did. Again, thanks for having me on. I'm talking to myself pretty much, but thanks for watching, hanging out with us today. I'm back every Monday. We'll have some more content for you in the meantime, but thanks for hanging out, everyone. Again, I'm going to be live on PPR Tyler on YouTube with Jason Allwine. Big character at Player Profiler. So come hang out with us there. Literally in 7 minutes, we're going to start up the draft. But we'll see you next Monday. Everyone have a fantastic rest of your night. Go Minnesota Timberwolves, baby. Anthony Edwards, the next Michael Jordan.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.